Okay, welcome everyone. Anyone here for the first time? Okay, great. We've got a lot to catch up here on that, have we, dear? No problem. Okay, so we are at our fifth part of series on the book of Daniel. And I got to catch you up because everyone's got ADD and forget what happened last week, including myself. So let's just do a 60-second recap. This chapter we're going to go through this evening. There's a lot going on. It's very complicated. There's a lot of drama. And of course, it mostly did with Persians. So, what do you expect, right? I mean, hello. You know what I'm saying? Come on, people. We know what's going on. We know the story. Just a quick recap. We know that there's someone called Daniel. He was kidnapped as a young boy by Nebuchadnezzar. Together with many, many young boys, they were given top treatment in Babylonia to become great, successful advisors, which Daniel and his three friends were. And they did this by being extremely holy, keeping the laws of the Torah, although they were away from their families. And the pinnacle of all of them, the quintessential advisor, was Daniel. He was amazing and unbelievable. He becomes a dream interpreter, and from last week, a vision seer. We mentioned already, there's a machloket, whether he was a prophet, a real Navi, or whether he just had tremendous Ruach HaKodesh, just like an incredible, smart individual with great spiritual insights. We are following, if you remember, for the most part, the derech, the way of the Abarbanel, and his position very clearly is that Daniel was a prophet. And if you remember, we said the reason why this book, Daniel, is not in the book of prophets, but is in the book of writings, was because he's got secrets in there, which he keeps throwing little breadcrumbs out. He's going to do a little bit more about the arrival date of Mashiach. And this chapter has a few hints as well. He doesn't explicitly tell us anything, although he is one of two people we know for sure in history who knew the arrival time of Mashiach. Daniel and Yaakov. Jacob was the other one. Okay? So Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, if you remember, and in the dream he saw a statue, and the statue was made of 4 metals. Each metal represented the 4 kingdoms that were going to have tremendous power in the world, and we're going to subjugate Israel and the Jewish people. He then has another vision. He eventually dies, and his kingdom is taken over by Belshazzar. Belshazzar sees writing on the wall, if you remember, and then he as well is told that he's going to die. And then later on there's another vision, which we spoke about last week, which kind of like fits in to the earlier vision of the statue with the 4 metals representing the 4 nations. He sees 4 beasts. Now that's important. Probably one of the most famous prophecies of Daniel, the 4 beasts. And the 4 beasts he saw were, number 1 was an eagle, remember, with wings. And this eagle represented the Babylonians. Second came the bear, big scary bear. And the bear represented the Persians. And then that's the whole Persian story in between the first and second temple. And then he saw a leopard, scary leopard with wings as well, which represented the Greek exile. That's the whole Hanukkah story. More about that later today. And finally saw a crazy, scary creature with iron teeth and claws. It was so scary to him and so unrecognizable that it didn't even have like features of a regular beast or animal. That particular creature represented Rome and was going to become the part of the final destruction of the Second Temple, which we're in the lead up to right now, of course, in the 3 weeks. And eventually he saw little clay earthenware on the feet, the lower leg and the feet of this creature, and he realized this was going to be the final Arab takeover, the Arab takeover of much of the world, and the final exile the Jewish people would have to go through. You're caught up. Fabulous. But there's a bit missing. And what he's going to do right now is he's going to go back in time and give us another vision. And this is more complicated, so you have to bear with me. I need you really to open your heads. because he's going to throw in some nice pieces at the end about the end of days and a revelation that he had, which is pretty scary, we're going to see as well. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to see a vision that he saw, because he saw a lot about the Babylonian exile, that's number one. That was the whole eagle. And he saw a lot about the Roman exile, that big scary creature with the iron teeth that consumes a lot of the world, which the Romans did. But there was a lot missing from the bits in between. That is the Persian and the Greek. So now, I don't know why it happens in this order, that's above my pay grade, but Daniel is going to fill in via another vision the whole Persian exile. So what we're going to be talking about right now, basically, and the Greek exile, is basically the Purim story and the Hanukkah story, because that's what he saw and that's what he predicted. Are we together? Any questions? Did I lose you? Shalom? Are you still with me? Okay, fabulous. So where do you think Daniel is going to get his revelation, his prophecy about the Persian exile? Not rhetorical, I'll take an answer. He's about to have a revelation about the second and third exile. In a dream. Where is he geographically?
By the water.
Which waters? A lot of waters.
No, by the sea, like last week. No?
You happen to be absolutely correct. That's very good. How do you know that? How do you know that? He is, actually, by the water. Do you know where he is, though, geographically?
Israel?
Nope. By the way, he should be in Israel, by the way. Why should he be in Israel? Because prophecies actually really only exist in the land of Israel. All of his prophecies, probably that's why many people say he's not a prophet. But according to the Abarbanel, who says he is a prophet, something's going on over here. And every time he receives a prophecy outside of Israel, which he's done so far, something's cooking. Something very unusual is going on. Right, so he is actually in Persia. Very good. Because he's prophesying about the Persian exile, the Persian takeover. What takeover? So if you remember, we had Nebuchadnezzar. He's gone. He had a son called Evil Merodach. He's gone. We had Belshazzar writing on the wall. He's gone. He's the last Babylonian king. He's gone. He's done. Or he's about to be done. Who's taking over? Darius, Dariyavesh, the Median, from an area called Mede, and his son-in-law by the name of Cyrus. Now, these two people were actually pretty good to the Jewish people. And they attempted to allow the Jewish people to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash, give them permission to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash, until someone all of you have heard of called Achashverosh stopped all of that. He stopped that. He put a stop to it. Where in Persia is Daniel having this revelation? He's by water, which is relevant as well. We'll see why by water seems to be an important part of this. And a lot of episodes in the Torah do happen by water. But where is he in Persia? Where's all the Purim story going to take place? Shushan. Where is Shushan? Come on, we're the Persians. We're my great neck people. Where in Shushan does all the stuff take place? No, not King's Point. Where in Persia does all the action take place? Shushan ha-Bira. What's the difference between Shushan and Shushan ha-Bira? What? Capital of? But Shushan is a capital.
It's the capital of Persia.
Shushan is. What's Shushan ha-Bira?
The new one.
What?
The new capital.
No new. It wasn't new. It was part of the original. It was part of the original, but how? Okay, so Shushan is going to become the epicenter of the Persian, although Achashverosh himself wasn't Persian, by the way, he was from outside, but he is going to relocate everything from Babylonia and create a whole new life in Persia. And he chose Shushan. Now, Shushan was considered to be the capital, but he wants a special place in the capital. So in the center of Shushan, there is Shushan ha-Bira, which was, I guess you would say, what's the capital of the United States? Washington, D.C. Then you have Capitol Hill, which has got like guards all around it, you know? This was the same thing. It's the epicenter of the epicenter. And no one was allowed into Shushan ha-Bira. There were many people living in Shushan, many Jews, but very few people were allowed to Shushan ha-Bira once it really got established. We know that Esther was allowed because she was married to Achashverosh. And we know that Mordechai was allowed because he was one of the great ministers, right? He was a great advisor as well. He was a very important person. So he was allowed, but no one else was allowed. There was actually a moat of water that separated Shushan HaBirah from the rest of Shushan. You got to remember, Achashverosh was a crazy dictator. You know what I'm saying? The guy was completely out of his mind. So he had to create a whole system of CIA and FBI checks to make sure that no one got in to assassinate him. So that's what he was doing over here. So now, Daniel is there. He's in Shushan HaBirah. Why? Very good. Once he finished with Nebuchadnezzar and he dies, he's like, they're not going to need me anymore. I'm out of here. These people are crazy. Who knows what they're going to do to me next? So he goes to Shushan. Now, the only question I have is, why he didn't return to Israel? I don't know the answer because his three friends, Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah, they did probably return to the land of Israel, according to many opinions. So why didn't he return? I don't know. But lucky he didn't, because Belshazzar sees writing on the wall. He goes and asks a lot of people, and then his mother-in-law or grandmother, some say, says, oh, go get this Daniel. So they say they had to go fetch him from this place. They had to go. So this actually occurs before the writing on the wall, and they had to schlep him in. So there he is in Shushan. We're not too sure why that particular location, but he leaves. Maybe he was led there by Hashem because he's about to have a revelation. Now he has the revelation by water, and water, or in the Torah, always represents purity, right? It cleanses. So over here, the idea was that this was a cleansing experience which allowed him to have prophecy outside of Israel, because normally you're not allowed to have prophecy outside of Israel. There are exceptions. This is one of them, if you believe he was a prophet. Jonah is another one, believe he received it before. And there are other, but the rule still applies. But still, he had to have it by water. And some say the water always represents the water that's going to flow through to wipe away Babylon and to let Persia take over. Something else I need to mention over here as well. For the first time, we're now shifting from Aramaic back into Hebrew. Aramaic to Hebrew. So chapter 8 that we're describing over here is all in Hebrew. And up to now, we've had a lot of trouble figuring out what's going on. It's still going to be tough. But it's in Hebrew as if to say, Bavel's done. Bavel has gone. Bavel, Babylonia, was all about Aramaic. That was the main language, although the Persians spoke it too. So they're saying, you're gone, your language is gone, so now the rest of the dialogue is going to be in Hebrew because Bavel has fallen, Babylon's fallen, now it's all Persia. Are we caught up? Are we good? Okay, he's there, he's by the water, and he sees another prophecy. And he sees this vision by a stream called the Ulai stream. Not sure exactly where that is, but it's somewhere in Shushan. And he says that he lifted up his eyes and he saw a ram standing next to the stream, and it had horns. And one horn was short and one horn was long. Now, if you've been following the classes up to now, you should know that whenever you see a horn in Judaism, a keren, it always means power. Keren is power. It's a common term because the keren is the powerful part of the animal. So it's going to symbol. All this is symbolic, obviously. These are all visions, but these animals are going to represent. And this ram represents a small horn and a big horn. And the small horn, we're going to see later on, but the commentators tell us, is going to represent Darius, who was small. He had power. But the bigger horn is going to come after him is Cyrus, his son-in-law, Koresh, who's going to take over from him, who's going to allow the Jewish people to go back to rebuild the temple. So he sees a ram with the two horns. Wait a minute. Didn't he see a different animal representing that? This is the Persian representation, right? The ram now represents Persia. That's the whole Purim story, right? But he saw him as a bear before. Why is he seeing it as a ram? What changed? So the Abarbanel says something very interesting. He says, there are great kingdoms that are very, very fearsome. And sometimes they're fearsome to the whole world, right? But they're very nice to the Jews. Happens to be that the Persian Empire, especially at the beginning, was actually very good to the Jews, but was scary to the rest of the world. So the first vision when he saw Persia, when he saw the Persian Empire, coming up, taken over from the Babylonian one. He saw it as a bear, scary with ribs in its mouth. And bears, we said, don't usually eat meat. Although the comments on my last YouTube video when I mentioned that, people went crazy identifying bears in the entire world. I'm talking about the average bear in towns. They don't, right? They're not carnivorous. So that's how they saw it, because for the world, the Persians, but for the Jewish people, like a ram, pretty powerful, but not scary. So it wasn't so bad. It didn't start so bad. It's like America, right? If you're out there and you're causing America trouble, you're in trouble. But if you're a Jew living here, I mean, it depends where you live, I guess, nowadays. But for the most part, Baruch Hashem, we have a good relationship. So one empire can mean different things to different people. Different things to different people. Okay, great. And by the way, I have to mention, because I was somewhere last night seeing President Trump speak, and behind him was obviously the American flag with eagles on top. And I said to my wife, 1 minute, it's going to say that we're going to return on the wings of eagles. Another prophecy from another prophet. Okay? Could well be. These creatures that nations use, the symbols are very, very telling. They mean a lot. Why would you use an eagle over here? Why would some nations use swords on their flags? Pretty scary, if you ask me. Right? You don't want to see that. Right? You want to see, like Canada, a maple leaf. Not so threatening. You know what I'm saying? Right? Stars and stripes. That we want to see. By the stars, we're going to see in this prophecy as well. Stars are coming. Is stars a good thing or a bad thing to see in a vision? It's fantastic. Stars. Kochavim. Right? They shine. They give light. They're beautiful. Okay, that's come later on. Fabulous. I'm saying a lot. We're moving forward. So his Torah had horns, and the horns were high, and they were powerful, and they were going from west to north to south, and no one could stand before it. That means the Persian Empire was a strong empire and very, very powerful. And then came an Ez. Ayin, Zayin. What's an Ez? We saw an Ayal. An Ayal is a ram. And now we're going to see an Ez. What's an Ez? A goat. So he sees this goat coming from the west. Okay? Coming from the west. And he sees the light flying in. He sees it flying in. So what is this creature going to represent? The Ez is a strong creature, and no other creature could hurt the ram, but this goat smashed it over. So this is all about a reference to the Greek Empire, specifically Alexander the Great. Wait a minute, Rabbi. Didn't you already see the Greek exile, the Greek symbol was you remember? The leopard. Very good, thank you. Extra piece of pizza for you later on. Yes, he saw it as a leopard. Here he sees it as a goat. Same idea. For the rest of the world, it was like a leopard coming in. Leopards are fast. Alexander the Great conquered a vast amount of territory in a very short amount of time. But when he came, he was actually very good to the Jewish people. And so for us, he appeared as a goat. And that was it. Not so scary, not so bad. Okay? He saw the goat, however, with a horn coming out of the middle of its head, and it had beautiful eyes. Okay? Had eyes and a horn. Okay. So what's that about? So now we're talking about Greece. That's Alexander the Great. Although that kingdom is going to pass on to people, if you remember the whole Hanukkah story, going to end up with Antiochus IV, who's not so good. So it started off good for the Jewish people, because he's going to be good. Alexander was great, but not so good after that. Remember, Alexander was really respected in his day. The Jewish people loved him so much so we mentioned that every Jewish boy who was born for like a year or so was called Alexander. Whenever you hear a boy, or sometimes even maybe a girl called Alex, it probably comes back to the original year that Alexander the Great of Macedonia came to Israel, and Shimon HaTzadik met him and they had a good relationship. But he died very young. He was in his early 30s. He, by the way, we'll see in a second, he never died in battle. He would have just kept going on, and he would have taken over the entire world. He would have taken over the entire world. No doubt about it. There's a machloket among the Mefarshim, how he died. Some say he was poisoned by one of his inside people, and some say he died of fever on one of his adventures that he was doing around the world. But he never died in battle. Right? He was extremely successful in everything that he did. And he's the goat. And he's coming in fast. Horn means power, very powerful. Eyes always represent, are eyes good or bad? Good or bad? They're good. They're the window to the soul. Right? You look at someone's eyes. Oh, I looked in her eye. I looked in his eyes, you know? Unless my wife's looking at me like this. And then I'm in trouble. But then I can't see her eyes. Right? No, eyes are a good thing. So that's the idea. He's powerful, but he had tender, nice eyes. Meaning, not literally, but it means that he was good to those people who took. He wasn't there to just wipe everyone out. Not like the Nazis. He came, he wanted to spread his ideas, his thoughts, and learn from other people. That's why he used, everywhere he went to, he tried to take as much information as he was able to. Okay? So that's where we are. Fabulous. He comes along, and we know us, what happened in real life? So Alexander the Great said to Darius, I'm taking over. It's the end of the whole Persian. He's like, no. And they tried to bribe him and everything, but eventually, this is a later Darius, by the way. Eventually, Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, there's two Darius. Darius is a title, not a name. There's Darius the Mede, right, from Madai, and there's Darius from Persia. It's Esther and Ahasuerus' son. So at the end of the whole Purim story, afterwards, we don't hear this part of the story, when Darius took over, Alexander the Great said, it's over for you, you're done, and they offered him a vast amount of land and money and power. Alexander, I'm not in it for that. I'm here to take over. And that's what he did. Okay? Fabulous. What happened after this? So after this, things got messy for the Jewish people. And he sees in the vision that these horns were overtaken by 4 horns, which shows that the Greeks, after he died, were split up, which we do know, split up into 4 different parts, 4 different nations, and Antiochus was the one who was in charge of Israel. That's why Epiphanes, he ends up becoming the one who gives a lot of trouble and making all the decrees against the Jewish people, right? Such as, and I remember some of the decrees from the Hanukkah story, no Brit Milah, no Shabbat, no Rosh Chodesh. You got rid of all the Jewish holidays. You get rid of Rosh Chodesh, get rid of the Jewish holidays. No Brit Milah, right? That means you're getting rid of the start of a Jewish child, right? They used to do vile things to women and men probably. It got really very, very bad for the Jewish people. Interestingly, the Jewish people were in Israel. So we're calling this an exile, a galut, but this is very important and it applies to today as well, obviously. Are we right now in exile? Yeah, we are. This is galut, but we're in Israel. We have the land of Israel, but we're not at peace. We're not at peace. When you're not at peace, even if we have the land of Israel, like we did in the Hanukkah story, remember that? Because we had the land of Israel. Okay, the Greeks came, and then Antiochus, they took over the Beit HaMikdash, they kicked us out. It was like guerrilla warfare for years and years and years. It wasn't real shalom for us. We weren't safe in our land. That's galut. Even if most of the Jewish people live in the land of Israel, which they didn't then and they don't now, it's still considered galut. That means we're in galut, and I don't need to tell you, the Jewish people in Israel are in galut as well. Okay? We're all in it together. Fabulous. So he sees this, and he sees this 4 horns, and then he sees out of them came forth one little horn. One small horn comes out. So now we have this departure as to what this new horn, this new power that's going to rise means. Daniel saw it as a new horn. Okay, so here we're going to see a machloket between the Abarbanel, who lived in the 1400s, and Rashi, who lived before. Rashi says the new horn that he saw actually is Titus, and he sees that this is the Roman Empire is a continuation of the Greeks. And they were in many, many different ways, right? The laws and the philosophy, right? The Greeks kind of like evolved into the Roman Empire. And that's the way Rashi sees it on his commentary. He says, this is all about the Greeks going to go, and the Romans going to take over, and they're going to eventually, just about 200 years after the Alexander the Great story, that we have the whole Tisha B'Av, the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. Okay? That's where we are historically. The Abarbanel disagrees. And if you know me by now, after 4 classes, you know that we love the Abarbanel. And he says no. This actually, the whole Roman thing is going to come as a challenge in a different form, which we're going to tell you a little bit later. It's going to be very interesting, and we're still dealing with it till today, which is why I love the Abarbanel. He says no. This last horn is a reference, and it's a small horn. It's a reference to Antiochus, Epiphanes, Antiochus IV, and he's going to be the one who's going to cause all the trouble for the Jewish people during the Hanukkah story. So he just says this final horn is just still part of that original Greek exile that's going to end up, and then the Jewish people are going to push him back, and we're going to take over the temple, have it for 200 more years until the Romans take over. Are you with me? So that's the Machloket Rashi and the Abarbanel. Rashi's like, the Romans already started, and this is just a no. This is actually the end of the Greek exile, and they have tremendous power. You should know, and I'm going to mention this as an aside because I find this fascinating, that the Greeks and the other nations of the world started to marry each other off. So things start to get muddled up. And this actually is a tradition that went back, lasted for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Kings would marry their children to children of other kings and queens. And they do that to consolidate their power. Achashverosh is going to do exactly that. Achashverosh did not come from, when I say Achashverosh, you know what I'm talking about, right? The whole Purim story is going to take over 127 provinces. 120 took from the Babylonians. He's going to add another 7. He does not come from royal blood. He was a military commander, a dictator basically. So where's he going to get his royal credentials from? Marrying someone from royalty. Marries Vashti, very good, who was a granddaughter, people say, of Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, this happens a lot. There are many opinions that say that Antiochus III, who came before Antiochus IV, gave his daughter Cleopatra to marry Ptolemy V. So now they all start to marry each other. So it's all becoming very, very mixed up in here, okay? And they start making peace settlements around the world. Right? This is all strategy. If you study British history, we have a lot of monarchs going back, thousands of years. It's always the French, right, is marrying the British. Even, I was just flying back from London, and that is a Napoleon movie. I couldn't watch most of it. It was just too long, and it's not a good movie, I'm sorry to say. I was really looking forward to it because I love these historical things. I would have preferred it as a documentary, but, the guy was amazing. He was an incredible warrior, no doubt about it, but he was a terrible statesman. He was lacking statesmanship. All right? That's a discussion in leadership. I have a lot to say about that. But he also started to take women from other royal houses in order to consolidate his own power. This was really, really common. And now they marry because they're in love, whatever that means. Okay, fantastic. So that's what they were doing, and that's what everyone's doing as well. Fabulous, okay? And he sees it, and fabulous. Now, things start to get not good for the Jewish people, okay? So now, we're going with the Abarbanel. We're now at the end of the Greek exile, and Antiochus takes over. And Antiochus is in charge of Israel, because remember, Alexander the Great is taken over by various leaders, and our portion ends up in being overtaken by this terrible anti-Semite. So he sees this in his dream, and he sees a host of heaven, and this horn grew, gets bigger and bigger, and he threw it, and some of the stars fell to the ground, and they were trampled on. So the stars over here, in short, according to the Barbanel, is a reference to the Jewish people who lived at this point of history. It was a very difficult time. Until the whole Hanukkah miracle that's going to culminate with that, everything was very, very bad and very, very difficult for the Jewish people. And that's what he saw, and that's how he saw it. And he realized that who are the people who were most affected? So he says the Jews who were martyred at this time are the ones that he saw. He basically, in this vision, and he was very upset about it, obviously, when a prophet saw terrible things happening to the Jewish people, it upset them greatly. Okay? Happened to Jonah. He became depressed. You think like a prophet's going to walk around happy the whole time. In order to receive the prophecy, they've got to be happy in a very happy state. That's one of the prerequisites to receive prophecy, by the way. You've got to be happy. That's why many prophets, in order to receive prophecy, did what? Played music. That's why King David put a harp in his window. And when the wind came in, music played and it lifted up his spirits. So they're very happy to receive it. Shaul, first King Saul, received his first prophecy when he heard people playing music. So music actually is one of the conduits to make you happy, which is why during the 3 weeks we don't listen to music because it makes us happy. We want to be a little bit sad. And so too over here, Daniel receives it, but he must have been happy when he received it, but he wasn't happy afterwards. He became very, very distraught, knowing that many of the faithful Jews were going to be hurt tremendously by the Greeks. Okay? All right. Okay. Here's the next part. So that comes to the end, and he sees it, and he realizes that it's about to take over. I'm sorry. According to the Abarbanel, where do the Romans fit in this? Because remember, according to Rashi, he's been speaking about Rome for a few verses. So it goes like this. He says, this is Daniel speaking, just stick with me. There's going to be a set time for the allotted discontinuation of the Jewish people in exile during this Greek exile, where our people who hurt us are going to be thrown to the ground, referring to the Greeks who are going to be hurt. They're going to go, and we are going to live well and prosper. Okay? So what exactly is it being spoken about over here? So the Abarbanel says, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Not yet. This actually refers to the Romans taking over, and this actually is when the Jewish people are hurt and the destruction of the temple. I'm sorry. That's what he saw at this point. So even Daniel saw this downtroddenness of the Jewish people, but later on. So basically he agreed that Rome was going to come after Greece and going to destroy the second Beit HaMikdash. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, very good. Now he receives a very weird interaction. And what he's going to do right now is Daniel receives a message directly from two angels. Two angels speak to him, and we are not told who these angels are, but pretty much everyone agrees, for various reasons, who they are. So there are various angels, malachim, that visit the Jewish people at various times of history to help us out and to do stuff for us. By the way, let me change that. There are many, many angels that can visit us at many, many times to do a lot of stuff for us. But there are certain big ones who come in order to do big stuff for us. Big stuff. And the two biggest ones that we know are, anybody know who are the big ones? Shout it out, don't worry. Michael and Raphael is also very, very good. And Gabriel. Who is greater, Gabriel or Michael? I did not know the answer to this question. I never knew there was a hierarchy in angels. There is a hierarchy in Malachim and angels. I know it sounds weird, but there is. And I'm going to prove it to you from these verses. So Gabriel is great, but Michael is greater. That's what we're told. And this is how Daniel sees it. Because Daniel sees these visions, and he doesn't know what they mean. He's seen the ram, he's seen the goat, he's by the water, he's seen all this stuff going on, but he's like, I don't know what this means. I mean, you can show me the riddle, but you've got to show me the answer. So the answer is revealed to him cryptically. He understands it, and then he cryptizes it more for us. So we can't fully get it unless you really know your stuff. So he hears Gabriel, the angel, comes to him in a dream and tells him what these visions are, which I pretty much explained to you because we just kind of jumped ahead. And Gabriel over here is referred to as Veshma Echad Kadosh, a holy one. A holy one came to him in a dream. Everyone agrees that is a malach, and the malach is, according to Abarbanel and most other people, Gabriel. And then another one came, and his name is Palmoni. Palmoni. This is a very, very difficult question. Does anyone know what the name Palmoni is? Okay, you have to go to the book of Ruth. Ruth. There's somebody who has the opportunity to marry Ruth if he wants to. If he wants to. Who said that? Ploni Almoni. Who is Ploni Almoni? So he was a family member some distant cousin, I think, of Ruth, and he had the ability to do Yibum and to marry her and to continue. He says, I'm not interested, I don't want to do it, and instead, who gets the job? Boaz. Boaz gets the job. The night before he dies, he marries, has relations with Ruth, and then they have their children end up becoming David HaMelech and eventually Mashiach. Okay, that's the whole story from Ruth in a big nutshell. So Palmoni is a contraction of Ploni Almoni. Some say that was really his name. Some say no, it just means Mr. X. It's anonymous. And if you look at the translation, they'll say the anonymous one. Who's that? That's Michael. Why is Michael anonymous? Because seeing him is so big and so awesome that he wasn't able to do it. Even Daniel could see Gabriel, which is pretty impressive, because usually you hear an angel speak to you. And by the way, how does the angel sound? If an angel were to speak to you, because there'll be many occasions that are happening, Torah's full of it, how does he sound? Like your own voice speaking to you. Comes to you in your own voice. I have a lot to say on that, a lot, but that's how it comes to you in your own voice. And some say you even see your own face. He didn't. He somehow not just heard Gabriel but saw him, but he couldn't manufacture in his mind Michael. So he goes to Gabriel. Gabriel is able to consult with Michael because he's higher up. Michael tells Gabriel, this is what you're going to tell him. And he tells him everything that we told you already, but he adds a nice little juicy piece, which is, let me tell you about another calculation, he says, about when Mashiach is coming. Because basically Daniel is like, when's this going to end? He's very despondent, Daniel. He's like, this is terrible. They're coming for us, and the Greeks, they heard us, and the Romans, and when's that going to end? So that's the piece I missed out. So he turns around and says, don't worry. Comes Gabriel, Michael, I'm going to tell you. Ad Erev Boker. It's going to happen until nightfall in the morning. What's that? So night always represents good or bad?
Trouble.
Bad, trouble. You don't like nighttime, right? It's Erev. Erev is from Lashon Mu'urav, mixed up. Erev is Mu'urav. It's not clear. It's dark. Galut is exile. That's why Yaakov Avinu, who received the prophecies about all the Galuts we would go through, received that prophecy on the mountain with the ladder going and the angels going up and down. That was the original vision of these four nations going to hurt us and attack us. And he saw it at nighttime. So Avraham is Mr. Morning. Yitzchak is Mr. Afternoon, because the afternoon is hot and difficult and challenging. That's why Yitzchak is two words, Ketzchai, death in life. He actually died, right? And the Mizbeach, right? So he's Mr. Afternoon. Avram is Mr. Morning because he's welcoming the whole world to monotheism. Yaakov is Galut. He's exiled. We've been kicked out of Israel. That's why Yaakov has to leave Israel, right? He's running away from his twin brother Esav. Running away from his twin brother. He does return though, right? He returns with his wives and his children and a lot of money. So too, by the way, as a side point, the Jewish people at the end of days are going to return to the land of Israel like Yaakov. We're following the same pattern. He's kicked out of Israel. He's Yaakov Avinu, he's Yisrael. Right? He represents us. So he left escaping, barely with his life, because Esav, his twin brother, wanted to kill him. And then he gets to go back with the Rechush Gadol, with great success and families and money. So too, at the end of days, we are going to go back with great success to the land of Israel with Mashiach. You get it? Which is why, if you look in the Amidah, half of the Amidah is all about Mashiach's arrival. If you didn't know that, you're missing out on a lot. You'll see that the bracha that follows after Mavarach Shanim, which is the blessing to ask for Parnassah, is the return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel. Right? To Shofar. That the shofar is going to bring us all back. So the two are connected. So they say that Mashiach is going to come when the Jewish people are doing well financially in the land of Israel, which hasn't been for a couple of thousand years. But now we are. A bit of a dip, but we're going to come up again, don't worry. A bit. Okay, very good. So Erev is nighttime. So he says Erev, but Boker. What's Boker? That's morning. That follows nighttime. You go from nighttime to daytime. Vayerev vayivoker yom echad. So boker always represents morning, beginnings, redemption, geula. Nighttime galut, morning geula, redemption. He says, don't worry. Basically, Michael via Gabriel is saying, don't worry, it's going to be okay. There's going to be a morning that follows the evening. Like every rabbi tells you, or your mother tells you, it's bad now, it's going to be okay. That's what Daniel is telling us. Because he had the same concerns that we have. When's this whole killing thing going to end? Right? It's the Babylonians, it's the Romans, it's the Greeks, the Persians, Dayenu. He's like, Erev, Boker. And then he says, here's the funny part, Alpaim shlosh miot v'nista kodesh. 2,300. That's the key number. 2,300. What's that? It's a calculation of when Mashiach is coming. We're just not too sure when to start that clock. I'm going to add to it that Erev Boker, Rashi tells us, so it's not even Kabbalah, this is Rashi tells us, is also a gematria. Gematria is numerical value, which comes to, anyone want to do it? I'll give you 10 seconds. Boop, 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 boop. Anyone gets this, I'll be very impressed. Erev Boker. There's no Vav in Boker, by the way. Bet Kuf Resh. 5? No. Close. Close. What? No. It's 574. 574. It's like I couldn't do it without a calculator either. So the rabbis are like, it's 574 plus the 2,300 comes to, carry the 8 minute, 2874. I cheated, I wrote it down already. 2874. What's that? Don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. That's what Daniel was told. By the way, he knew. But he wanted to give us, we're told already, he wanted to give us a little hints and some kind of calculation starts and then ends at the end of 2874 with the arrival of Mashiach. But I know when the clock stops, but when does it start? And I'll leave that to you to figure out, and the thousands of people who write me messages on my YouTube videos with the craziest stuff you've ever heard in your entire life. But that's what I'm going to tell you. Yep, I know who you are. And of course, the obligatory, every video I put out, people telling me that they are Mashiach. Always a few dozen individuals. Who knows, maybe some are, they're not. Vayhi. But Mashiach is not watching my Daniel series on YouTube. I promise you that right now. If you watch this on YouTube, you're not Mashiach. Vayhi. So he says, so he feels better now, right? Because he's told there's going to be an end. It's going to work out well for the Jewish people. He is told it's not going to happen in his lifetime, but there's consolation. At least he knew that, if I say things are going to be good for you, but they'll be good for your kids and grandkids, it's at least a little bit of consolation, a little bit of nachama. We're running out of time, I'm so sorry. We just finished off. Okay. Then he sees one last vision. And this vision is so terrifying. He's going to see more after this. We'll talk about it next week. He's so terrifying that he ends up falling down on his face and he cannot move. That the malach has to come along and touch him in order to lift him up again. That's how powerful this vision is. Let me explain a little bit of background. All prophets, except for Moshe Rabbeinu, receive prophecies differently. Moshe Rabbeinu's prophecy is different from any other prophet. There is no comparison. Moshe Rabbeinu heard Hashem speak, aspaklaria, clear, panim el panim, like you talk to a friend, clear. Other prophets, it wasn't so clear. They sometimes saw riddles. Chidot had to figure out what was happening. They were invested in it. It was part of their personality. So every prophet, there used to be schools of prophecy. You could get better at prophecy, just like you can grow in intelligence and knowledge as the Rambam. There were schools of prophecy. I always say it reminds me of like Hogwarts, like owls flying everywhere and like funny hats. It wasn't like that. But I guess the idea comes from this as well. There were ways that people would grow. And the greater you were as a prophet, the clearer the vision and the better your ability to decipher what the prophecy was. You saw numbers, animals, but what does it even mean? Like you see a dream. What does a dream mean? You see teeth falling out of your dream. Is that a good sign or a bad sign? All right? Which one is it? See me later, I'll tell you. You see yourself flying. You see a snake in your dream. Is that a good sign or a bad sign? Good. People say, it's fantastic, right? If a snake bites you in a dream, is that a good sign or a bad sign? Even better. If you kill the snake in your dream, is that a good sign or a bad sign? Terrible. So we don't know. So we see these things. And by the way, you can actually, this is a good analogy, because we know that dreams are a 60th of prophecy. So you can have a dream, but you don't know what to do with that. So you go to an expert to try to decipher what that dream means. Same thing with a Navi. Now they're getting extremely powerful prophecies that are not just going to affect them, right, and their dating and their family and their health and their parnasah. They're seeing stuff that's going to influence the entire world. Daniel's the same thing. So most prophets, even Daniel, at this point, he's so overwhelmed by the prophecy that he falls down and loses. And many people did receive their prophecies, or they were in a sleep state, or they basically started to shake, and they lost control over their bodies. It was a very deep, I don't like this word to describe it, but I'm going to do it anyway, like a trance-like state. They weren't just walking around and I went, oh, what's going on? Oh my God, right? It was a very deep, meditative, trance-like state. You received your nevuah. In it, he heard the angel speak to him, this scary vision of an angel speak to him, and referred to him as Ben Adam. Ben Adam, the son of man. Now we see this expression elsewhere in the book of Ezekiel. Basically it's saying that your vision that you've seen up to now and will be seeing are a very high level. There were many prophets that lived among the Jews, like 1 million prophets. Most of them weren't relevant to the end of days, so their prophecies were lost. But a whole bunch were canonized and put in Tanakh because every one of them had some value that were going to affect the Jewish people later on, and in the most case, for the end of days, like Isaiah or Jeremiah, right, or Malachi, or Daniel. So these prophecies were kept and canonized and put inside Tanakh, put inside scriptures. So he's being told, because he wasn't aware, he thought maybe it's just coming to me. He's like, no. Everything you're seeing is very important, not just for you, but it's going to be put into print, and it's going to be spread through that entire world and become part of the canonization, because you are Ben Adam. You are the Son of Man. It's a very, very high and important title that you're getting. Okay, I'm overrun my time. I want to just finish off because it's the last part. The Abarbanel speaks about, Daniel speaks about kingdoms that are going to come at the end of the Roman exile. Okay, which we are in right now, but we're flipping into the Arab exile. By the way, we've pretty much passed it, and we've reached the end of the statue that Nebuchadnezzar saw. We're at the bottom, the iron. Remember Rome with the iron teeth inside the animal, you remember? So iron represents the power of Rome, and then a little bit of earthenware represents the Arab nations. So the Abarbanel says there's going to be a fight between them at the end of days. Last part, he says, however, the main battle is going to be, what is in Rome today? What does Rome represent to this very day? The papacy, the popes, right? The papacy. He says they're going to cause a lot of trouble in the world and for the Jewish people, and they are Rome today. So we talk about Rome. We're not talking about you hanging around in Rome, go to the kosher restaurants, right, which are very nice, by the way, right, throwing money in the Trevi Fountain. Is that in Rome, right? Yeah, we'll do that, yeah. Right, that's what we're talking about. Talking about the power and the wealth of the papacy is, they own everything. You know that, right? It's unbelievable, right? Billion followers, like the incredible power they have in the forefront and in the background. So the Abarbanel, we love the Abarbanel.com, he says that the end of days, what he saw over here, we're going to see great brazen-faced kings who understand mysteries. He says that's the popes. The popes and papacy are very brazen-faced, but they understand, they're very smart. Not idiots, not like, skinners walking around just like blowing people up. They act with great chokhmah. If you want to know, according to the Abarbanel, who's controlling the world right now, it's Rome. But they are coming up against the clay and the earthenware, which is the Arab world. or I shouldn't say Arab world, because I'm going to include Persia, which is not Arab, but it's the Muslim world. And there is good in the Muslim world, and there is bad in the Muslim world. There's good and bad. There's Tov Shabi Ishmael, and there's Ra Shabi Ishmael. There's Tov Esav, and there's Ra Esav. So that's how he goes through this, and he becomes extremely disturbed by this, and that's how the chapter ends, of him seeing this final control and power of Rome right before Mashiach comes, which we're going to talk about a little bit more next week when we dive into chapter 9. We'll stop over there. Thank you, everyone. Any questions, thoughts, comments? I did skip a little bit, but I think we have the main gist. By the way, of all the classes I've ever given, this is the hardest stuff to go through and prepare for. It's so tough. There's just so much bouncing from different directions. Questions, thoughts, comments? Dreams, yes.
By Pope, you mean like the Christian church?
I mean the Catholic Church, to be specific, yeah. There are actually different popes out there of different denominations, but he's referring to Rome. Rome, the Vatican, and the power and the money they wield is enormous. Absolutely enormous. You have no idea. They have their own state, but that's nothing. That's nothing. Yeah, 100%. They have control over that as well. And they're no friends of the Jewish people right now. We've had good popes. And we have right now one that I'm disgusted by. Terrible, terrible individual. Okay, Hashem Yishmor. Have a good week, everyone.